It's time to take a deep dive behind the scenes of Enlisted. Thanks to the hard work of an individual within the Enlisted community, I am able to bring you the truth about Enlisted's player count. We'll also be able to look at and analyse the data for interesting things such as average game length, the most common maps, as well as who is the biggest deserter. Firstly, I want to talk about how this data was gathered. The coder responsible for this made use of two main things. Firstly, the Enlisted replay website, where all games played in the matchmaking are visible. With access to this site, they were able to use GitHub to scrape, track and analyse every single match of Enlisted. Well, all the replays that existed when they started collecting data on the 11th of August. After a few days, the replays on the site are deleted, to save on server space on Gaijin's end. The scope of the data of this experiment is short, only from August 10th until August 25th. This is still a decent sample size, but obviously doesn't contain an entire year's worth or more of the game's lifespan, so take everything with a grain of salt. So, does this information include bots? Well, it does actually, and this also helps us to ascertain the reliability of this data. A data mine made over 2 years ago by forum user Robia discovered that there are 8,015 unique bots in Enlisted. This more recent data includes 8,014 bots, so rest in peace to the singular bot that Gaijin has put to rest over these last years. Before we get to the player count, I wanted to go over some interesting stats and trends that we can see. Interestingly, the most popular game mode is actually Invasion, with more than 50% of all games being played in this mode. This is then followed by an even split of about 13% for Destruction, Confrontation and Domination. Going forward, anytime you see Domination, that just means Conquest. That's the name internally for this mode in the code. The least popular or least occurring mode in the matchmaker is Assault at 5.5%. But what about maps? The most played map is interestingly still Rzhev, followed by New Georgia and Alligator Creek? This is particularly surprising to see, since I always assumed that Japan is the least popular faction, so I would have expected that Pacific maps show up closer to the bottom of the list. But I suppose we can assume that since the Pacific map pool is so small, it makes sense for all of their games to be condensed into a few maps. Pacific does have like 7 maps, so... But it is weird to still see Rzhev at the top, with over 2% of all games being on this map. I don't feel like I see Rzhev as often as that. Now, as for the least played map, I would have expected to see one of the Tunisia maps, since Tunisia is only available at BR1 to BR3. You could also make the same argument for Moscow between Soviet and Axis. But the least played map is actually Gogol Street in Stalingrad. Very strange indeed. Maybe the servers just don't like picking this map? Is it because it's only available for 1 or 2 game modes? Who knows? Okay, I will give you 5 seconds to guess which game mode is the most deserted. You'll never guess. I can't think of a mode that everyone seems to despise despite being incredibly goated. That's right, the most deserted mode is... Invasion! Okay, so it's technically Invasion. Because it is 54 or whatever % of all games, it's gonna be the most deserted just because of that. But if we average out each game mode and count desertions based on how often these modes are played, aka weighting the data, we can see that Domination or Conquest is in fact the most deserted mode based on how often it comes up. Since we know that Conquest is the most deserted mode, it also makes sense that Miansera 5-point Conquest, Vold 5-point Conquest, Rzhev and River Crossing 5-point Conquests are some of the top deserted maps in the entire game. Also up there is Munda Trail, which I absolutely do understand since all of the Munda Point maps are just the worst thing ever. It makes a lot of sense that those are the most deserted maps. Alright, so we know about bots, maps, game modes. Let's look at some player stats. Let's first look at mine. As you can see, since the 11th of August I have played a total of 64 games. Technically 63 games, since one of them I deserted in. But truth be told, I don't even remember playing Tunisia recently, so I don't know where I got that desertion on Al-Har West from. As we can see in the bottom right, I played roughly 4 to 10 games per day, although honestly I haven't been playing as much in the last week. Playing during 20k events is really unenjoyable for me. Let's look at another creator. Let's go with Napoleon Total. Holy moly, Napoleon deserts games as a competitive sport. 151 desertions and 82 games played. Now, this many desertions does mess up the graphs a little bit. If we look at the 14th, Napoleon definitely did not play an entire 60 games of Enlisted. We can also see that he plays entirely solo, or at least only queues with somebody once, as he has an entirely unique roster of players in his games. Up next is Quadro. Oh no, I feel a bit guilty, like a private investigator revealing all dirty secrets. Quadro barely plays Enlisted. He's a serial deserter too, only queuing up for a good game mode and map to make a good video. If you're trying to get into a YouTube video on Quadro's channel, I guess you need to play on a Monday. Next, let's have a look at Slacker. As we can see, Slacker is a victim of Enlisted event syndrome, only hopping on every other day to complete his 20k. He queues up with friends, doesn't really desert, and I know that he's currently been working on a lot of Enlisted mods, so it makes sense he hasn't been playing as much as he's been making mods. Moving on, we have Bloke, the MG42 enjoyer. Bloke absolutely refuses to play on maps they despise, deserting a lot of games until they get a good one. But because of this, I think they end up playing more than other creators, since they have a more enjoyable time only on the maps they have fun on. If you need to avoid MG42 fire, hide out in Univermag, Rzhev or Hurtgen Forest. Following from Bloke, we have Paradivision. We can see that PD plays regularly each day, and I think he's been streaming since he has a large number of people he often queues up with. Para is also a Stalingrad hater, deserting a lot of games on Univermag and Communistry. Before getting to the final creator I want to show stats for is me Admiral Starks. It seems like desertion rates for YouTubers are incredibly high across the board. It seems like Stark only plays with friends and has been grinding hard in the last week. The final creator I want to show today is none other than Gaijin's community manager for Enlisted, War Thunder and Active Matter. How much Enlisted does Major McDonald's play? Oh, only 2 games. Funnily enough, on the worst 2 modes in the game. Coincidence? It's funny to make jokes about Major abandoning Enlisted for other games, but seriously, he has been busy in Gamescom promoting Active Matter, and I hope we see a big return and focus on Enlisted again in the future when he's back. Alrighty, I have made you wait long enough. Let's dramatically reveal Enlisted's unique player count and discuss what it means. Enlisted has, at least, 419,000 players. What? Looking at Enlisted's Steam charts, the game has a peak of around 4,000 concurrent players over the course of the day. Now obviously, Steam is the smallest part of the Enlisted player base, and this is only concurrent players, so we should expect a decent amount more unique players. It's not like everyone is logging onto Enlisted and playing for 16 hours straight. I really hope not. But 420,000? This seems a bit unbelievable, and trust me, we've checked and I'm pretty sure these are all real players. I would ask people for random screenshots of endgame scoreboards and go check if those players existed within the data, and they all did. Everyone showed up. But it's such a crazy number compared to 4,000 that it's hard to believe. We can actually see based on this graph that most people only play 1 to 3 games per day, making up 70,000 of our 420,000, although this graph is only counting players on August 24th. So it's safe to say that a quarter of Enlisted players play 1, or less if you can somehow play less than 1 game, a day of Enlisted. I guess this is normal? I don't know, I'm a bit out of touch as a hardcore gamer. 1 game a day is rookie numbers. Oh, also, the player base is split at an almost perfect 50, 25 and 25% across PC, PlayStation and Xbox. I'd also like to point out that these numbers do reflect what has been claimed in the past, as we can see easily in Major's most recent video about the player count, in that about this many people participated in events such as the Moonbase event, Zombies events, or Titan Rise events. It's just really hard for me to believe that this game has so many players, but what seems like so little attention from the developers. I mean, the game is in an incredibly buggy state right now. Stalingrad and certain Berlin maps should honestly be disabled until this horrible mess of AI pathfinding is corrected, as well as other numerous long-standing bugs that are yet to be resolved. The game is falling apart at the seams, but patches are nowhere to be seen. Also, we are being drip-fed content at an incredibly excruciating pace. We get like one map every couple months, a few guns, a few tanks copied over from War Thunder. I feel like if we really had this many players, especially I think a lot of people that play Enlisted do spend money, shouldn't we be getting a lot more content? I don't know, let me know what you guys think. Lastly, let's round out with some quickfire graphs and images, and then closing thoughts of the individual who sourced all this wonderful data. The average game length is 22 minutes and 37 seconds. This is pretty good, and I wonder how much this is affected by the recently, or at least in the last couple months or so, change that was made to put a time limit on games, even when the teams have tickets remaining. Here are the legends with the most games of Enlisted played over this period. Congrats to Kim1919 for losing your sanity in completing 407 games in under 3 weeks, an average of 30 a day. In contrast, the players with the most desertions are 2 PC players, an Xbox player, and 2 PlayStation gamers, so at least no single platform is responsible for all the desertions. Private Y Try is the biggest loser, winner, most quits. I have seen this player countless times, and not just in my own games, I see him in other people's games, but he always disconnects. I don't know what's going on with this player, but 769 desertions is insane. They basically load up the game just to exit the game. Are they trying to complete the tech trees purely through left games? Despite 769 quits, they still have played nearly 100 games. This is still a 90% desertion rate though, and it's always at the start of the match, at least from what I've seen. And last but definitely not least, closing thoughts from the data collector. They want to point out that the map and mode rating systems seem almost entirely placebo, since they know they have downvoted all of the conquest maps, but still get conquest at the average expected rate. They also wish they could better analyze the data to see if the desertion penalty actually has a good effect. It seems like veteran players desert just as much as ever, and this probably only really affects newer players, although Major did say it's had a positive effect, so who knows. They also note that you can totally take the name of one of Enlisted's bots and play with that name. The bot will still play separately under that name, although this doesn't affect your stats or progress in any way. They do wonder what would happen if all 8,014 bot names were taken by the community. Maybe that's what happened to the extra one that was lost over the years. It was turned into a real player, gained sentience, and is forced to play Enlisted. Oh my god, abstract horror beyond my comprehension. I'd love to know what you guys think about this data, and honestly, are you as surprised as I am about just how many unique players Enlisted has? I'd really love to hear all your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like as it helps me out a lot, and if you want to support me even more directly, consider becoming a member. You'll get access to a bunch of bonus perks that you can see when you click on the button, as well as, always, a shout out to all my current supporters. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have an incredible day, and I'll catch you next time. Bye bye!